All right, everybody. Welcome to Cheese in Depth. I'm Michael Landis, and today we're doing cocktails. And so I have four cheesemakers, mongers coming on here, and we're going to talk cocktails, how they're done, and their favorite cheese. But before we get going here, maybe a good idea to have a little holiday toast. So cheers to the holiday.
Cheers. May it be a safe, happy, healthy holiday season for everyone.
Yeah, nice little bourbon start. That's good, nice and warming. Temperature here is about 40 degrees in Tampa, so this does not hurt at all. All right, so let's go ahead and get going. Britton, let's start with you and your cocktail that you have.
Good morning, everybody. So good morning, good afternoon, I guess good evening by the time some people see this. So I am going to talk a little bit today about one of my favorite cheeses and also my favorite cocktail, and thought I'd pair the two of them. So my name is Britton Welsh with Beehive Cheese. I have been a cheesemaker at Beehive for about 15 years. One day my dad and my uncle got this crazy idea to start a cheese company out in northern Utah, and the kids came along for the ride. So obviously I love cheese, otherwise I wouldn't have been in it for so long. So the cheese that we're gonna be doing today is called Barely Buzzed. So this is our cheddar style cheese. And then the beautiful thing about it, and we'll get into it a little bit later, is you can see here the rind on this cheese. So the base is a really smooth, creamy Utah cheddar with the coffee and the lavender in the rind. So as it ages, it's gonna get a lot of flavor infused deep into the cheese. So my philosophy with this cocktail is first and foremost to confess that I am not a cocktail expert, but I love flavor and I love trying new things. So my philosophy in making these cocktails is going to be trying to craft something that'll complement that rich coffee flavor in the cheese, but also to complement some of those lighter lavender notes. So my go-to cocktail, and what I will have at 5 o'clock after interesting day of shipping holiday cheeses to folks, would be the Manhattan. So what I've got here is a beautiful Basil Hayden's dark rye. So this one I picked because first and foremost, it's going to be a lot more bold and kind of rich than your traditional rye that you would use when making a Manhattan. So this is made with a blend of two whiskeys, so a Kentucky straight rye, as well as a Canadian rye. And then they put a little bit of port into it as well. So that's going to open it up really nicely. So by pairing the espresso, that Turkish grind of espresso in the coffee rind, I feel like that's pulling out a lot of that richness. And then complementing that in making the Manhattan, instead of simply using normal bitters, I am going to use a little bit of the lavender bitters. So again, just trying to pull out a little more of that lavender in the cocktail to create, or the lavender in the base of the cheese, to try and create a really unique flavor. So let's go ahead. And again, I am not a bartender. There should be a little disclaimer at the bottom of the screen. So I've got my best friend when I'm making cocktails in the kitchen, my dish rag that's going to prevent me from trying to make too much of a massacre here. So first, I am going to get my cocktail shaker. And then the second thing I'm going to get from the freezer is the freshly frosted glass. So I'm going to add just a little bit of ice. This is about a handful and a half of ice to the shaker, and then put in about 2 ounces of the rye. So there's 1 ounce and a 2nd ounce of the rye. I'm going to put in 1 ounce of vermouth. So put the vermouth in there, hit it with 1 dash of Angostura bitters. That's going to give it a little bit more body and kind of savoriness. And then hit it with 1 dash of the lavender bitters. So go ahead and get my cocktail spoon and get that mixed up nicely. And this is going to be the perfect base. So one thing I love about making cocktails is you can custom craft anything in there. So I'm going to take 1 second and kind of share my inspiration of what my 2020 quarantine has been. and it is a book I got off Amazon. So this is called The Cocktail Codex, made by some really crazy bartenders out of, I believe, New York and Chicago. So why I love this book is you have these beautiful full-size pictures, and they boldly proclaim that there are 6 different types of cocktails. So what I've been doing going through quarantine is tasting through each of the 6 cocktails and the variations on those 6 bases that create all of the cocktails that we know and love. So today we ventured into the martini family. So the reason I love this book is it's going to give you a base, and then throughout the chapter it goes into, okay, here's different variations you can try on that. Try some different syrups, or try maybe a little bit more acid in your various drink, or a little more bitter. So you can kind of discover your own personal preferences that make one kind of an amateur cocktail aficionado in the house. So now that we've got our base, what we're going to do here is strain it into my coupe. That's my favorite type of glass to drink from. All right. So I got the base in there. And then my favorite thing about cocktails is the ability to finish it and craft that. So that's, in my opinion, what's going to make the kicked up margarita, or the margaritas are next. We're going to do the kicked up Manhattan. So I've got my lemon rind here, just a small peel of lemon, and I'm going to take that and express it over the top, get some of those aromatics in there, and then put a little on the rim, let it swim in there. And then what I decided to do about a day in advance is get some sour dark cherries that are in syrup, and I have put those in vodka and lavender, just some lavender flowers overnight. So I'm going to take that. You can kind of see it here with some of the actual lavender flowers that have been hanging out with the cherries. I'm going to add that in there, which is going to make the perfect garnish. So with that now, kind of the mentality of cheese. So I've got my pairing here. Got my freshly made Manhattan that smells incredible. And I can actually see kind of like a little oil slick, those beautiful lemon zests just kind of hanging out on the top of it. I wish I had a camera that was strong enough to see that. So my philosophy with pairing, and it's going to be a little different, unlike wine and cheese, or maybe like beer and cheese that are going to do a little more of the work for you. It's important for me to bring out the cheese well in advance, so it has time to come to room temperature. The cheese has an opportunity to really start releasing some of those aromas and the volatiles that you don't get with a piece of cheese fresh out of the fridge. So I've got my warmed up cheese here. I'm gonna have a small bite, kind of let it coat my mouth, and then finish it with the cocktail. And if this goes according to how I practiced it, it should taste pretty darn good. So again, I'm letting the cheese kind of open up in my mouth and really fill all of the parts of my mouth. And then get to know the cocktail with your nose. Hello there. Okay, that turned out better than it did when I practiced. So I am okay with that. What I'm tasting here and some of the things I'm going to kind of try to go for, and then as you start crafting your custom cheese cocktail pairings, you can check out. But I really love the compliment there. The sweetness, this would be the perfect dessert. A nice Manhattan with a barely buzzed would knock it out of the park. Get any really strong cheddar in there. The sweetness of it's going to complement that nicely. And then kind of the lavender with the flavored lavender in the cheese works really well. So with that being said, I am really excited to get on to our next pairing, unless Michael, if you have any questions before we move on. But there's my take it cocktail pairing.
Britton, that was amazing. I really love the research that you did with the amount of, different variations that you can do. I did a class just recently online about changing recipes by just changing the cheese. And you can take that recipe there and add in some additional flavors and have some fun stuff with that. So that was really cool. I really appreciate the depth of work that you went into that. So that looks like fun.
Had a lot of fun, and it tastes good.
So how long have you been quarantining?
Since probably March, kind of hanging out.
That's nice. That's nice. That could. So alcohol delivery service then?
socially distant trips to the store followed by just kind of being responsible. So maybe a little more socially distant than proper quarantine, but nothing a good cocktail can't make better.
I agree with that, absolutely. We're going to go ahead and move on to Ellie, and we're going to do a little bit of Margarita, and of course a fantastic cheese as well. So looking forward to being able to play with this and your recipe. So why don't you go ahead and take over there?
All right, sounds great. And so I apologize in advance too. The sun is going down a little bit here in Wisconsin, so it might get a little dark. But yeah, so my name is Elle Fearing. I'm the national sales rep for Carr Valley Cheese. Just a little bit about me. Much like a lot of the employees at Carr Valley, I have been working in different roles since I was 14 for the company. I grew up about a mile from the plant, and when I turned 14, my parents said I needed to get a job, and that was the only place I could really get to without having a driver's license. So long story short, after I graduated college, Sid said he had a job for me, and here I am. So it worked out really well. And my best friend and coworkers, same kind of story, and a lot of the cheesemakers and other employees are kind of similar, where they've kind of grown up with Carr Valley, which I think is always kind of cool. So so today I'm going to be doing a margarita with our Gran Canaria. The Gran Canaria is a mixed milk cheese, which is probably, I kind of rotate through my favorites for Carr Valley, but this one is kind of a longtime favorite of mine. It's kind of special because Sid Cook, he started making mixed milk cheese and experimenting with different varieties back in the 80s, right when he bought his first plant for Carr Valley. And at that point, the first cheese he came out with was the Menage, which is a really well-known cheese throughout the country. And then from there, we kind of have expanded that line of products, and we make closer to 10 mixed milk cheeses now. And the Gran Canaria, I think, is really special because it's aged for about 2 years, and then we also cure it in olive oil. So it has some different complexities that you don't see in just like our Menage or like a younger mixed milk cheese. And I also like that all of our cheeses have a lot of balance. So I really do pick up on the sweetness from the sheep milk. You get a little bit of tanginess. It's nutty. It's just really nice. And the texture is fantastic. So I kind of chose this one to pair with a margarita because I love margaritas. And it's getting really cold in Wisconsin, so this makes me feel like I'm in a warm destination, which the winter is long here and it's hardly begun. So I have to do everything I can to get that feeling. So, but the nice thing with the margarita is that it actually brought out a lot more of the sweetness with the Gran Canaria, which is probably my favorite part of the flavor profile of this cheese. So for the margarita, I decided to use mezcal instead of a regular tequila. I've had different mezcals and I really like the flavor of it. Typically they're very smoky. This one isn't as smoky as some, which I also appreciate, and I think it will pair really well with the cheese. So the one I chose is the Luminar Mezcal Joven. It has blue agave. It's made with blue agave. And this is just a very clean tasting tequila that has, some earthy notes. It's very smooth, and you can kind of has a little bit of a nuance of the orange peel in it, which I really like, and I think it pairs really well when you're adding, triple sec, or in my case, I'm using Contro today for the margarita. I think that brings out more of that citrus flavor, which I really like. One thing I thought that was kind of cool about this specific brand of mezcal was that it's made in the Zacatecas state in Mexico, which is in the north central region of Mexico, and about 250 families have been farming and growing this agave for years, and that's who kind of helps produce this mezcal, which I think is really cool. And Carr Valley itself prides having, a very small network of farmers here in Wisconsin to produce cheese with. So as soon as I saw that mentioned, I was like, hey, that's really cool. So anyways, So what I'm gonna do here, and kind of as Britton said, I am no cocktail expert at all, but it tasted really pretty good the last couple times I've made it, so fingers crossed. So what we do is I've already salted and put ice in my old-fashioned glass here. But in the cocktail shaker, we would put our mezcal first. So I'm gonna put about 2 ounces into this. And then you would add the Contro as well. For this, I've been adding about 1.5 ounces or so. And then my recipe suggested, like if you wanted to make it a little bit sweeter, you can either use pure agave or like a simple syrup, which like I said, like sweet. So I'm going to add some simple syrup in mine. And then you add lime juice. Some recipes say that you can just squeeze a lime, but I found that really just wasn't enough lime for me. So I can fill the glass a little bit more, I decided to buy some lime juice. And then you shake it. And then I have some ice in here already, so I'm just gonna pour it over the ice. And then it's always great to garnish with a lime as well. So, like I said, I have never really done any cocktail pairings. I've obviously done a lot of wine, lots of beer pairings, and I've even done some mead pairings. But this was a new one for me, and I really wasn't sure what to expect. I wanted something that was kind of, you know, a very bold cocktail to go with an aged cheese like the Gran Canaria. And so, as I said, when I tasted this one, it definitely brought out some of the saltiness, but it also really became such a sweet cheese. You can kind of, you know, really see the sheep milk coming through on this one, and I really don't taste any of the like tanginess that you sometimes get at the end of this cheese when I had it with the cocktail. So I'm gonna try it. Yeah, I think it tastes really great. I think it's really nice because it doesn't overpower the cheese, and the cheese does not overpower the cocktail, which I think is really important when doing any type of pairing. So I think that this went really well together, and I'm excited to see if there's some other cheeses in our line that will go with Margarita, since that's my personal favorite. I'm sure I'm gonna find some more, and I definitely have some in my fridge, so I'll have to do a little bit of experimenting, but yeah, that is all I have.
Well, that was fun. I really like that. Margaritas have been a favorite of mine for a long time. Generally, I'm a little lazy on that, where I go out and buy the pre-mix and just glug that in so I can have a larger glass to enjoy. But
Right.
I'm wondering, as the choice of not going with an actual tequila, the benefits of going with the mezcal there.
I think, you know, with the pure agave in it, I personally think it just makes it a little bit sweeter. It cuts some of the stronger flavors that you get in a tequila. So that's why I like it. In the past, I've had way smokier mezcals, which I like that too. I don't think that would have paired as well with this specific cheese, but I'm sure maybe it would have done really well with like our apple smoked cheddar or something like that. But that's just a personal favorite of mine. I think it just brings in more sweetness.
Okay, great. Thanks. I can't wait to try it myself.
Yeah,
All right. All right, let's go ahead and get Padgett up here, and we'll get going with her. Welcome. I hope everything went well today with the adventure.
Yes, yeah, it's been such a busy day. It's been a busy couple of weeks. And I want to start by apologizing because we've been slammed with orders, thankfully, but I never sent you any dancing fern, so you could do a pairing with the cocktail. I really totally meant to send you some, Michael, so I'm gonna make it up to you. A little bit about our cheeses. We are a farmstead creamery, so we produce the milk that we use for our cheeses almost exclusively. In 2020, we started supplementing with some other milk from a nearby dairy farm. But the Dancing Fern, this particular cheese, is one of the cheeses we've been making longer than any of the other cheeses that we've become known for. And we're perhaps most known for Dancing Fern. It's our most award-winning cheese. And to me, it's really the cheese that highlights the quality of the milk and the seasonality of our production the best. And it's a very complex flavor profile, and it rides the line, bitter and sweet, where I find the best comparison to be walnuts and cultured butter, like the bitter of a walnut, or the earthiness of a walnut, and perhaps shiitake mushroom, like that sort of flavor profile, very earthy. And then a cultured butter that's very sweet, light, creamy. So Dancing Fern in general, as far as pairings go, I tend to go with a white wine or sparkling wine. So I came up with this idea for the cocktail. And again, like Elle, I'm not very experienced with cocktail pairings. I'm way more, kind of a wine pairing person, and beer as well. But with cocktails, I feel a little intimidated. So we happened to have a conversation earlier this summer about pairing liqueur with Dancing Fern for an article that was in Culture magazine just recently. And our intern at the time, and he's actually a very accomplished cheesemonger, and he's moved on to work with the Bloomy Rind in Nashville. But he was making cheese as an apprentice for 6 months this year with us, Holden Strub, and he's just a fantastic guy with tons of experience and a great palate, a great feel for coming up with good pairings. And his idea for a liqueur with the Dancing Fern was Salaire, or Salaires, which is a very, very old traditional French gentian liqueur aperitif that I had a very, very remote familiarity with before his suggestion to pair it with Dancing Fern. And he happened to have some on hand that he shared, just a few ounces with Nathan and I, so we could taste it. And we were really blown away by how well it paired with Dancing Fern and how it kind of emphasized that balance between sweet and bitter, because the Salaires is definitely very earthy, very bitter, made from gentian root and among other botanicals, which is heavy on the bitter, but this delicate sweetness also comes through. So the first experience I'd had was just the straight Salaires on the rocks. I guess we actually just added a touch of sparkling water. The first tasting that I ever had, and I was really drawn to that and really enjoyed it. And it was nice in the summer too. It was a kind of a seasonal, flavor to me. But for this, I wanted to find something that was more fall, a little bit more earthy and complex for the season. And so I researched different various cocktail recipes and looking for something that incorporated Salaires. And I was drawn to this idea that I found in Food and Wine magazine that features gin. So it's a gin and Salaires and lemon and celery root soda, or celery soda. I assume it's made from celery root, but from Dr. Brown's, it's called Celery. So that's a soda. It has fresh squeezed lemon juice. And I chose the Castle and Key Autumn Recipe Gin, which was also a recommendation that came to me from a friend that works in a really nice wine and liquor store in Chattanooga nearby. So I had never tasted the Castle and Key Autumn recipe, but it is an excellent gin. Really superb gin. So I'm kind of hooked on this combination now. I'm really loving it. The recipe is very, very basic. You have 1 ounce of your gin, 1 ounce of the Cellaire's aperitif, and a 1/2 ounce of fresh squeezed lemon juice. And so those all just go right on the rocks into your glass together. And then the final ingredient, the celery soda, I just kind of top it. I estimate that you're going about 2 to 1 here, like maybe 2 ounces of the soda. But again, I mess around with this recipe a little bit, and I've been tasting and playing around with it. And I found that too much of the celery soda really masks the flavor of the liquor, particularly the Cellaire's, with too much sweetness. So I backed off and I eliminated completely the simple syrup that was in the original recipe. You just don't need that much sweetness, I think, with this particular mix. So I'm just going to give this a good stir. And what I'm looking for that I feel is particularly complementary to the Dancing Fern is that it's bitter, but yet it sort of finishes with a sweetness, which to me is sort of counterintuitive. Like you think you taste the sweet first and then the bitter on the back. But I don't know why it comes across to me the other way around. So you think it's bitter at first and then you sort of finish with sweetness. Oh, and the last little garnish, celery, that goes in the drink. And so just to have a little festive feel to it. And I also am using a local artist here in Chattanooga, a hand-blown glass that I really like to bring out during the holidays. So yeah, so here it is. It's just 1 to 1 on the 2 liquors, a 1/2 ounce of lemon, 2 ounces of celery soda, garnished with a celery stick. Yeah, I think I got that one pretty right. I keep messing around with the ratios, and too much lemon throws it off, too much sugar throws it off. But I think that those quantities, those ratios work really well. And I've got a little Dancing Fern here, just ready to taste. Oh yeah, that's lovely. And also the lemon really is sort of I feel like an element that ties it all together. It's very nice, very light. Again, I think this for the fall is excellent. It's something festive and different. It's light, and I think a lot of times, we kind of go with heavier beverages like, red wine or dark beer. So this is with the polar opposite. But it really works well with the Dancing Fern, and I think it's a nice festive, something bitter, something sweet, and it also has this very vegetal, slightly savory note to it too, with the celery in there. So I really enjoy this a lot, and yeah, so I'm happy with how it turned out. This is probably my 4th or 5th iteration of this recipe. So yeah. I think that's about it.
Well, that's fun. I don't really think that much about cocktails with vegetables in them, even though that, we do, a tomato-based, drinks and stuff like that. But going with the celery, I think that's really fun. I think a cheese that's got a little bit of herbs in it, even an herb goat cheese or something would be fun as well. Just something light, and that's really unique. When I saw your recipe, I was, thinking about, well, that's a lot of vegetable, but then Bloody Marys are pretty much, can get as crazy as you want as well, So
Yeah.
you could doctor that up with some more vegetables in there, and I think it'd be fine as well too.
Right. Well, this one, yeah, with the Bloody Mary, that's so savory. And, and then you get the spiciness. Lots of people like it hot, which I'm a big Bloody Mary fan for sure. And this one is it's so, I don't know, it's reminds me a little bit of a French 75. You know, it's got that sort of, you know, it's got a bubbly, it's sweet, it's gin, very light. And I just think that kind of beverage with this particular cheese is it's just the best. It brings out the best of both the cheese and the beverage. I don't know what other vegetable I would put in this.
Radishes.
Radishes. Yeah, well, that would add some color too. This is a little like sort of plain Jane, you know, to look at. But it's just got a really nice, just uplifting kind of flavor to it. And
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks so much. Stick around, and David's coming up next. I'm really excited for yours because, you know, you're using almost all local ingredients, right?
I am. And, you know, it's, for me, it's about foraging more than mixology, because I'm not a mixologist, though I love to forage around the landscape that surrounds me. So, and so I traditionally change this cocktail up. In the summer, I'm using cherry plums, and also Himalayan blackberries, and then I'll change it to rose hips or blueberries, pears. So it just evolves as the season progresses. And so I'm really excited to share this, and certainly on the heels here of some really phenomenal cocktails from, you know, the Manhattan to Cecilier's and the Margarita. Great job to my cheese comrades here. We're just gonna have to coordinate shipping each other's cheeses to each other so we can try those cocktails. So I'm really excited to try your recipes. Again, this cocktail was just an inspiration at my dining room table. And the Clear Creek Distillery Eau de Vie or pear brandy is a core to a number of my thoughtful recipes, whether I'm branding pears or soaking Syrah grape leaves, right? So, Steve McCarthy founded Clear Creek Distillery in 1985 and modeled his distillery over a European or to emulate European style distilleries, distilling in small batches in copper kettles, and he uses only Oregon Bartlett pears. And so it's just a really good foundation for a number of cocktails here, as I'm surrounded by pear orchards, Camise, Bartlett, and Royal Rivieras and so forth. So what I like to do is take about a half cup or 3 shots of this beautiful pear brandy and put that in a shaker, as I'm doing here, and the same equal parts of a kombucha. So you can create your own kombucha. I use a lemon ginger kombucha. You can buy it certainly at any natural organic cooperative or even club stores today. So about a half cup of the kombucha in my shaker. And then I recommend 1 shot or 3 tablespoons of Pinot Gris. I didn't have Pinot Gris in my wine cellar. I know, shame on me, but this is COVID time. So I went to my wine cellar and I got this Verdicchio. And I think this will be really a nice complement. It's also dry, it's citrusy, so it should bring out some of that tartness and bring up the acidity in this cocktail as well. So 1 shot, about 3 tablespoons of that, and then 1 shot of simple syrup. So it's just 1 part organic cane sugar with 1 part water. And so basically 3 tablespoons of the simple syrup. And then finally, a half shot of, or a tablespoon and a half of lemon juice. And I know I have it here, so fresh lemon juice. So let's finish that. And then I went and I had some lemon verbena leaves. These are the end of them, but throw those in there. I'm going to muddle some cranberries and blueberries. The cranberries are left over, I'll admit, from Thanksgiving. And I'm just gonna muddle those just to give a little flavor, a little bit more flavor in my shaker. It's something I've learned that really helps express the seasonality of this cocktail. And then a little shake. All right. So this is the fun part, and this is where I think I've learned over time and over practice. Yes, I've practiced this, is where how to get the cheese to express itself. And so in a whiskey or old-fashioned glass, I'll fill that about 3/4 way with ice cubes, and then I'll take our classic signature Oregon blue, and what I like to do is just express that Oregon blue on the ice cubes. Now, I've tried shaking the Oregon blue in the shaker. It just doesn't express itself. So I just really like to rub these ice cubes. I mean, it's a little painstaking, but it makes a difference, trust me. So about just a little 1/4 tablespoon or a nice little crumble of Oregon blue on there. And then fill the glass part way. Let's go about 3/4 of the way on that glass. And then take a little topper of just soda water. And then to further garnish, taking the blueberry, piercing that, and then the cranberry, a crumble of Oregon blue, and float it right on the top, and voila, cheers. So you just have that lovely pear note coming through, and it just follows with those piquant flavors that a blue provides. And that's really my goal behind a cocktail that I'm creating here, is to put that cheese in the spotlight within a glass. And I think I've achieved it here, and I look forward to hearing your comments on it, my cheese comrades and friends out there. So a little bit about Oregon blue. It is our classic signature blue at Rogue Creamery. It is really the foundation of blue cheese making, which was started in the early 50s. It's modeled after a French style blue, a Roquefort, but it's made with cow milk, same molds, and we create our cheese in an environment that we've been making it for over 87 or since the 50s. And as a whole, the Creamery was founded in 1933. The Creamery is organic, and it is a B corporation. We are led by our mission. It's simply people dedicated to sustainability, service, and the art and tradition of creating the world's finest handmade cheese. And that's all we do every day, and complement our lives, like my friends here, with a few cocktails now and then and again. Cheers.
Cheers, David. What do you think of that? Putting the blue cheese in the drink.
That sounds great to me. Sounds really, really good.
I'd like to order one of those, please.
Yeah.
Well, Britton, you've been at my home. I can do that for you all. And we can physically distance at this dining room table here. So cheers.
Cheers. Well, you know, I was inspired by all of you, and to change up my cocktail, because we're getting into hours. I know, it's just, yeah, it's time to feed you. I know, with some cheese. All right, so Old Fashioned is my cocktail for the cocktail hour. And so I really, the main difference, and I think Britton said this, is about changing things up with different styles. And this is Girl Meets Dirt. And they do a cherry fig leaf preserve. And I thought, you know, I love cherries in it, and I really like the earthiness to it. And so I'm going to dab a little bit of that in here, and then put in a little bit of orange. These magnificent Florida oranges, you know, they're there. Get a little bit of squeeze with that. And I like to rip the rind. And that, to me, gives it a little bit more citrus flavors. Traditional, you know, aromatic bitter here. And then I like orange. So a little bit of orange bitter goes in here. And then a choice of bourbon. You know, typically I do like to step it up, but also I'm a big fan of just Jim Beam, you know, little 80 proof, and that, it works out really well. You know, couple nice shots in there. I got a little while before dinner starts, so got a little ice already in here, and I'm just gonna shake it up, get that. There we go. And I'm pairing it up with a little point raised toma and some crackers. So
Oh, beautiful.
that's what I thought I'd do. Bourbon helps.
I'm truly excited to taste them all. So I mean that about coordinating a cheese shipment to each of us so that we can try the cocktails that each has created. So I'm up for that. I'm really excited. I think I'll start with the Saliers, move to the Manhattan, and then finish with a margarita and call it a night.
Don't forget to drink water with that.
Okay.
I think it's really interesting that we have such also diversity of cheeses across the board. So depending on what somebody is wanting to try, have a little bit different. And then of course, following the idea of that, a little bit of modification, like David, seasonality plays a big part in his drink. And with Britton, you have a nice way of changing things up with that book. Where did you get that book, by the way?
Amazon. So again, I'll plug it again, but Cocktail Codex, just having the ability to really learn through some of the principles. Because once you understand the principles, you're the master of your own ship, and you can pick which kind of cocktail can really complement your appetizer, your dessert, or complement your meal. So kind of fun.
Great. It sounds like it's on my Christmas book list now. All right. Well, I want to say thank you guys for coming by and mixing up some cocktails and hanging out. It's been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you know, being able to spend a little bit of time with you, especially right now during the holidays where you guys have got to be just jamming it out right now. So I want to let you know that this will be on my YouTube channel, and also on my website. Michael Landis Cheese is going to have it has already, all the recipes. I'll tweak them up over the weekend to make sure that we make from the changes that you guys added in. And hopefully we can all coordinate some cheese coming up and enjoy some cocktails over the next 18 days of before Christmas. So thanks everybody. Cheers, and you know, to hopefully a year that does leave us on the 31st.
I'll enjoy that. Thank you, Michael, and thank you everybody in the audience.
Thank you,
All right.
Michael. Happy holidays.
All right, happy holidays. We'll see you guys soon.
Holidays.
Love you all. All right.
Love you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.